Welcome to the NFP Podcast, where we explore the empowering world of natural family planning. I'm Amy Smith. Join me and my co-host Emily Appledorn each week. Together, we're here to dive deep into the science, the stories, and the spirituality behind NFP. Every week, we push back against the free love culture and advocate for a culture of responsible love, where intentionality and respect are at the forefront of family planning. Join us as we discuss everything from the practicalities of charting and fertility awareness to the profound impact NFP can have on relationships and communities. Whether you're new to NFP or a seasoned pro, our podcast is your go-to resource for honest conversations, expert insights, and real-life experiences. So grab a friend, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. This is the NFP Podcast. All right, so welcome back to the podcast, everybody.
Hi.
We are going to get started today. Our topic is going to be another current events episode, and Emily and I wanted to just share our thoughts and reflections and ideas on some of the media headlines that we've seen around the conversation of abortion and IVF most recently. So, Emily, do you want to start with anything? If not, I have something to start with.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
So this is not a political, who to vote for. Emily, it's not our pay grade, not something that we really wanted to discuss, but more or less just kind of the meat of these topics. And I pulled up this clip on YouTube. It's on the NBC News page, and it's I guess the part from the Democratic National Convention where they had people talking about the term that they used is the fight for reproductive freedom. Mm-hmm. So what I was wanting to do, what I thought we could do is maybe play this and hear a little bit and just share our thoughts, because I think the different people they chose to speak on this issue will offer us a lot of good content to kind of start the conversation. And then there's one other clip that we'll talk about that deals with IVF, and I'm going to do that one in a second.
When you're expecting a baby, packing for the hospital should be a joyful moment. For us, it was different. We were told with 100% certainty we would lose our baby girl, Willow, and we were sent home. For 3 days, we waited until Amanda was sick enough to receive standard abortion care. Eventually, Amanda's temperature spiked. She was shaking, disoriented, and crashing. I don't remember what I threw into our bag that day, only that instead of welcoming Willow, I was hoping Amanda's life could be saved. I'm here tonight because the fight for reproductive rights isn't just a woman's fight. This is about fighting.
So when I listened to this, I was thinking to myself, I just had some more questions. So what exactly happened when you went to the hospital? So you were pregnant pretty far along, it sounds like, at least far enough that you knew the gender. And then something happened and it looks like the baby was going to you were having a miscarriage, basically. You were miscarrying, which is called a spontaneous abortion. And I don't know of anyone. I don't believe that if I have intercourse and a baby results from that I then have the right to kill that baby just because I didn't intend for that baby to result
to
from
be
that
as short or long as the Lord did.
And I feel like in this situation, though, I don't know anyone who holds that belief I just shared, which is, engaging in an act of intercourse, free will, baby results from the act of intercourse. I don't have the right to kill the baby from the act of intercourse. Anyone who holds that thinking, who then at the same time would tell, who supports a couple, or who would say to a couple, you don't have the option as a medical option, right? If like you are having a spontaneous abortion, well, then we should provide you medical care to help you through that spontaneous abortion. It's not something you're inducing. So I guess I'm just so curious, like, oh my gosh, are there really some medical policies that would send a woman home who's in the middle of a spontaneous abortion?
Right.
If so, we need to correct those policies because that's not good health care. Do you know, Emily? It's like, I mean,
Yeah.
I've had a spontaneous abortion. I've had a miscarriage.
Mhm.
And I was given the option to either have a DNC or to go home and abort, have that spontaneous abortion to miscarry, right? Naturally. So I just have more questions. And I feel like this wasn't very clear. And instead it was painted to say, see, look, someone put a policy in place to deny, that put my wife's life at risk, which
Right.
she's alive, obviously, right now.
Well,
So I'm curious how it all ended up, you know?
Yes. And all I can
So
think
anyway,
of
it just
is,
seems very ambiguous.
confusion only comes from evil, right? And this is so confusing. And obviously they're emotional about it, the situation. And rightfully so, anytime life is involved, right? Like, oh, the loss of a life, that's going to be emotional. So they're playing on all of that, right? And like you said, we have no idea the story. No one's even, I think, thinking about asking more clarifying questions in this regard. Somebody obviously knew them and thought, it's almost like someone played on their emotions, like, let's get them up there, because they look like a normal couple. And unfortunately, something happened, and that is awful. They lost their baby. But there's something more. Yeah, there's something more going on here. And to me, it's just very confusing.
And I think the reason I wanted to play this part of it too, and we'll hear from the other people they had on stage, is like just that there's a lot of holes. So let's just approach it rationally, right? So if the rational argument here by presenting this case, this anecdotal example, is that she was denied medical care, well, everyone, I'm saying, I believe, Emily, you're saying too, right? Like, well, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. Like, if she's bleeding out, if she's losing her baby, you shouldn't send her home. So that's why my question is like, okay, was that really happening? And what hospital was this?
Right.
And what, did they sue the doctor? Like, that sounds like malpractice to me. You know, like all of these things, I think, are really important questions. And I don't know of anyone who, again, holds that original thought I shared with you, who would say like, oh, we shouldn't have good medical care for women who are having spontaneous abortions because they're miscarrying.
Someone did not provide good care, regardless of maybe their desire to speed this process up, or I don't know. I'd be guessing as to know what was going on here, essentially, but something happened medically that shouldn't be happening, which is, in a sense, I would guess almost patient abandonment in this instance. And I don't know if that's the case, but
And I guess as someone, again, who holds the belief that if you are engaging in an active intercourse and a child results from that active intercourse, even if you didn't intend for that child to result from the active intercourse, and I don't believe you have the right to end that child's life. So I hold that view. I feel frustrated that oftentimes people who hold an opposite view will present something like this so as to make people like me who hold my thoughts and views look like we're evil. Like, see, like they want women to die. No, I don't want her to die. I wanted her to get good medical care because she was obviously having a miscarriage or a spontaneous abortion based on the limited information I'm given. So don't paint me as like a radical or sounding like I'm irrational or nonsensical or I don't want good health care, because none of those things are true. No, I don't think baby at all costs. Because an ectopic pregnancy would be another example of that too, right? Like, no, we are rational, reasonable people. I would say I'm a rational, reasonable person.
Based on the symptoms she's talking about,
so
that could have easily been what's going on here. Once again, I'd be speculating. But knowing women that have had ectopic pregnancies, for example. That's very likely here. Oh, no, you're right. Excuse me. Yeah, forget that.
Well, but she knows that it's a girl. They named her. So, yeah, I think she was too far along. But I know many women they would label themselves very pro-life, and they've had ectopic
Yeah.
pregnancies, and they've
And
had the fallopian tube removed.
that is
So
morally
the baby
illicit.
is
That
not alive
is,
because the baby cannot
yeah,
survive.
right,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right.
Yeah, we're not as unreasonable as we're being painted to be. So, okay, let's listen to the second person.
2 years ago, my husband and I were expecting our second child. Our daughter, Lauren, couldn't wait to be a big sister. I was getting ready for her 4th birthday party when something didn't feel right. 2 emergency rooms sent me away. Because of Louisiana's abortion ban, no one would confirm that I was miscarrying. I was in pain, bleeding so much my husband feared for my life. No woman should experience what I endured, but too many have. They write to me saying, "What happened to you happened to me." Sometimes they're miscarrying, scared to tell anyone, even their doctors. Our daughters deserve better. America deserves better.
That's exactly what I want to know.
Is that really happening? Are emergency rooms seriously
If this
sending
is the-
women away who are miscarrying? Where are the lawsuits?
No.
Like, what is this is
what
not
she's
okay, right,
describing
Emily?
is
Like,
accurate, that is
no.
horrible medical care. That
Horrible medical care, horrible malpractice care. And my
that's
question
exactly
is
what
like,
I'd be.
is that really because there's an abortion ban?
Right.
I just feel like this would be widespread news coverage, Emily. If women who are miscarrying are going into the emergency room bleeding or having symptoms of miscarriage or having questions about their the baby and the life of the baby, and they're being denied and turned away, I'm just like,
Exactly. As we
what?
know,
Like, should there be
miscarriage
sirens
rates
going off?
miscarriage rates are high. It's not unlikely that a woman is not going to have a miscarriage during her reproductive
Right.
life.
Right.
And so if this is the case,
Right.
which once again, I think that what you're saying is probably most accurate. Whatever's happening here is getting spun. I would hope to think, because if not, something is seriously wrong if a woman is not getting care for
Right.
her baby dying in utero. That's absolutely awful.
Right.
Oh,
I also want to point out maybe some irony or just my own kind of admiration for the way that she spoke is that she identified that the person inside of her was in fact a child, a human being, because that's something that we've talked about on this show before, as that life begins at conception. There's tons of scientific evidence to support that when an egg meets a sperm, that's a brand new human being. It can't be anything else. It's coming from a female human being and a male human being. The only thing that those human beings can create is another human being. We don't create other animals or other objects. We only create human beings. So when the sperm and egg meet, brand new human being. And that happens in the fallopian tube. So anyway, that is a person, that is a child at a specific stage of development, but it is a human being, a live human being with cells multiplying and growing right from the moment of conception. So I give her a lot of credit for saying the word child, that yes, she was pregnant with a child and she was then losing that child and she was denied medical care. Like that sounds, if that is in fact true, that is absolutely awful. And I don't know of any sane, rational, pro-life person who would support that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So again, don't paint me as crazy because I'm not crazy. I'm very rational and that is not acceptable. But once again, I know they had limited time too, and they're trying to make a point, obviously.
They're trying to pull at the heartstrings, right? And if anyone was looking at this rationally, I think anyone would naturally have the reaction that you're saying. Like, what is happening here? regardless of an abortion ban, what's going on
Right.
with your medical care? Something's not right.
Abs- Absolutely. Yeah. And did you sue that
Right.
doctor? Like, I mean, there's just so much
Right.
like legal ramifications that could result from this. You know what I mean? Um, so anyway, yeah, more,
Yeah.
I feel like there's more wanting here, more information is needed. So, okay, let's listen to the last person here.
Growing up, I was an all-American girl. Varsity soccer captain, cheerleading captain, homecoming queen, and survivor. I was raped by my stepfather after years of sexual abuse. At age 12, I took my first pregnancy test, and it was positive. That was the first time I was ever told, you have options. I can't imagine not having a choice. But today, that's the reality for many women and girls across the country because of Donald Trump's abortion bans. He calls it a beautiful thing. What is so beautiful about a child having to carry her parent's child? There are other survivors out there who have no options. And I want you to know that we see you. We hear you.
Awful.
Rape is awful. Absolutely awful. Absolutely awful. I think if that the conversation, I would want to start the conversation
Exactly.
with what happened to the perpetrator. And because
Right.
he is the one to blame. And why don't we have stronger policies to protect women that are subject of rape by enacting really strong consequences for people who rape women, for men who rape women, I'm assuming in this case, right? Like
Right.
castration sounds like a really strong consequence to me. If you violate someone in that way, and then to have it even compounded by
Right.
being someone close to you, like a step parent or a parent. Oh my gosh. I can't
Yes.
imagine as a
No.
parent, right,
No,
Mike?
I
I
can't.
just,
I can't.
Emily, oh my gosh. Can't imagine. I mean, that rape is a horrific, horrific crime. And
Absolutely.
the perpetrators of rape should be held to
Absolutely.
account with serious consequences. I'm only partly being sarcastic when I say castration. I actually think that would be a really great consequence. If you are going to do
if
that,
you
like,
knew
you don't deserve
that
to have that part
was
anymore. I'm
the
sorry.
result, yeah, the consequence, I think you'd be less inclined
Consequence.
to do that.
I think it would be, yeah. I'd be really interested to see
Right.
abortion rate, or to see rape rates, excuse me. If that was
Right.
how strong, if you really love women, you really care for women, what are the
Exactly.
policies you have in place to protect women against sexual
One,
violence like this? Because it should be
yes.
really freaking
Once
strong. It
again,
should be a
they
zero
are
tolerance
taking
policy.
something and twisting it
So,
to meet their, agenda, if you will. And
right. Which is what we're trying to
if
not do
this is
here. We are
right,
trying to
if this is a
rationally approach
situation,
these three
why are we
scenarios.
not talking about the perpetrator here? Why? Don't get me wrong. Obviously,
Right.
her story needs to be shared. But the idea that abortion gives you options, abortion actually it continues to what's the word I'm looking for? Not promote, but it continues to allow trafficking and rapes to continue because this can be done. if someone does get pregnant. So people are not, I was just talking to someone yesterday about this who just went to be trained on how to help women, sidewalk talk out front of like a Planned Parenthood kind of thing. And by legalizing and having abortion legal, you're actually allowing this to continue because these perpetrators don't feel like there's any consequence because you can get rid of the life if something happens. So this is very twisted, very twisted. It's very sad to watch. And I would venture to say, obviously I don't know this woman, but any woman I've ever heard speak about abortion, it's not an easy thing for them to speak about. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that I get the feeling that she's thankful she doesn't have his child. And I can only try to imagine what that is like and what she's been through. And I am not condoning any of this in any way, shape, or form. But I feel like any woman speaking about actually deciding to murder their baby, regardless of the situation, you can feel the sorrow. I can see and feel her hurt watching her it on so many levels, right? She's very hurt about the experience that she went through with the rape. But I think I would venture to say, I think it's also hard to think about and talk about killing your baby too, regardless of how that baby was conceived. And I think that's naturally because we're speaking about life. I might be being extra generous here in this situation, but any situation I have personally heard, it's very hard for women to speak about this, and men too, for that matter. It affects the men as well. I'm not talking about the man in this situation, but anyway, it's absolutely tragic what she went through, let alone then the loss of this life too.
Right. And I could see, I've never been in this scenario, but I could totally understand how you went through something so traumatic as a rape, and then you find out you're pregnant. How you would, I would probably, I'm assuming, like just right now, just for talking this out, that's my first time I ever really thought about this. I could totally see myself detaching from that pregnancy though, and saying, this is not my baby. Like, this is not my baby, which would make
That's true.
Going through a elective abortion a lot easier to say,
It's true.
This is not my baby. This was done to me. And so I could see that, like, I could see that complete detachment from that life. Now, rationally, that is still a life. And this is another part that makes rape so sad and evil, is that now we have this woman who's been violated in such an extreme way, maybe even, having it again compounded. I don't know the research. I don't know if it's psychologically worse when it's done by a complete stranger randomly or by someone close to you. I would think close to you, but again, I'm not well versed in that literature, so I don't know. But what results from sexual acts, whether they're, someone is participating in that, like by their own free will, they're choosing to participate, or they're raped, is that a new life has come about. So now it's not just me, there's also a baby. Now, I have not seen this evidence myself. I've heard of it when people are having this conversation, to say that women who go through with an elective abortion after being raped have a much harder time recovering from that experience compared to women who have been raped and go to carry the baby until live birth and then either parent or give the baby up for adoption. That they have a much faster rate of healing and recovery from the traumatic experience of the rape. So I think, yes, to do what was done here, which is to kind of just spit out this experience and to say, look at these evil people who are pro-life, and they put up policies to, make kids carry their parents' baby. I mean, that was a powerful statement when she said that. That definitely is a gut wrencher. And to say, no, I don't want one, again, there should be massive consequences for anyone who does that.
Absolutely.
So the perpetrator needs to be held to account. And where's the policy for that? And then two, all I'm saying is, how can we tenderly care for you who have gone through this traumatic experience? And even if we just do it in a detached way, we don't even have to say your baby. Okay, I get it. But now we have another life involved. And what happens to that life? Because that is also, like you, an innocent life in this matter, did not ask to be conceived in this way, had had zero input in the situation, but is still very much a life. And so what happens there? And so I just think that those obviously, and again, in a small clip, I get what they're trying to do here, but none of that is thought about, which is why I really wanted to bring it up into our discussion. And then the other part I just wanted to touch on was this conversation that I've heard, or this political, jab that I've heard put out there over the last couple of weeks. And she said too, is this, that the president was the one that put up all these abortion bans, when in fact that's not true. Okay, so you could say, well, maybe by him this happened because he was the president who appointed certain Supreme Court justices, who then changed the majority of the Supreme Court, which then led to the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which all it did was said, go to the states now. And every state, if you live in whatever state you live in, you vote for your abortion policy. And so no president had any bans anywhere. The states have bans, and the states are made up of citizens who vote. So just to be very clear here, there's no federal abortion ban right now. But it is true, my understanding anyway, of the two different platforms is that the Republican platform in no way wants the federal government involved in this conversation. Whereas the Democratic platform does. They would want a national access to abortion. They believe the federal government should be involved in this conversation. So that's what you should be thinking about when you go to the ballot box is, do you want it to be a federally mandated or the federal government involved in this issue? Or do you want it to be a states involved in the issue? Which to me just, I think of, well, no, I want the federal government because I'm scared that my state's going to vote no. Okay, well, you can move to another state. You can be an advocate for abortion in your state and get people to change their minds. Like, you got to get to work here. That's a lot of people in the pro-life movement. That's what they've been doing for so long. And now it's back in the states, and they're having to work even harder than they did when there was the federal mandate, because they're having to make people more aware of the issue and convince them of, here's the side. And when you go to the ballot box, you should vote like this. So anyway, the federal level is just kind of the quote unquote easy way out. It's like, I, instead of trying to communicate with my peers and convince people around me, I just want mom and dad to lay down the law and put a policy
I would
in
venture
place,
to say, just like you said, now that it is up to the states, every election, it's going to try to get on the ballot. People are going to try to bring it to the ballot. And here in the state of Arkansas, we just found out that it's not going to be on the ballot, but they're going to try again. And so the work that's being done, like you said, is more boots on the ground than it has been with it being a federal issue. So you're exactly right. Now that it is up to the states, it's a constant fight because there is pro-abortion groups want that on the ballot, and so every time it's going to be a fight to keep it off. So.
Right. And to be clear, again, I feel like some of this is a misunderstanding. And I feel like that came out in these people they had speak at the DNC, is that no pro-lifer I know, again, would tell a woman who's spontaneously miscarrying, she should just go back home and spontaneously miscarry at home. No, you should get medical care. And if that medical care results, sadly, in the loss of the child, that's sad.
Right.
But that happens sometimes because women miscarry. Do you know what I mean, Emily? Like, we are not so irrational to say, like, no, you have to just let that baby be there until the very last second and go home and bleed to death. It's like, what are you saying? Again, stop painting me to be so irrational, because we're not. And maybe there are people who would say that.
There are,
and those people should not be writing policy.
Areas of the country that are operating with that kind of medical care, this does need to be, blasted everywhere, because something's not right. Excuse me.
Absolutely. You should be suing suing doctors, suing hospitals, total malpractice. Total malpractice. Okay, so let's switch real quick with the little time we have remaining over to this clip I saw from it looked like a town hall with Tulsi Gabbard was interviewing. She was hosting a town hall with Donald Trump. And now we're going to switch topics to IVF. So I just want to play a little bit of this. Luckily, it happened right at the beginning of the town hall. So let's play this, Emily, and then we'll comment on it. Okay.
Some of the real issues that are facing Americans across the country and that don't get talked about often enough. And I want to start with one that's very personal to me, hard to talk about sometimes. This is only the second time I've spoken about it publicly, but my husband and I were married almost 10 years ago. We wanted to start a family. We were very excited about it. Unfortunately, it was very difficult. We were not successful in trying to get pregnant. For us, IVF seemed to be the only option and the last resort. As you know, it's a pretty difficult process. It's very, very expensive. I was in Congress at the time, traveling. I would carry the medicine that I had to administer shots to myself sometimes in an airport bathroom. And ultimately, the most difficult part was every time going to the doctor for another transfer and hoping that it would result in a positive pregnancy test, and then being heartbroken over and over every time that test came back negative. Now, I know some of your opponents, your political opponents, are saying that you want to ban IVF. While it didn't work for us, it's worked for a lot of families. And I just know that there are women and couples in this crowd, or those who are watching here tonight, who may be going through this same struggle and are concerned about being able to have this option, either because they might not be able to afford it, or they're concerned that it just may not be available. And I'd love for you to talk to them about how they should feel.
Well, thank you very much, Tulsi. And I didn't know about your situation. And it's tough stuff, right? Tough. Life is pretty tough. It can be beautiful, but it can be difficult. We are doing something with IVF, because IVF, as you know from friends and people you know, it's really worked out very well for a lot of people. It gave them a child when they would not have had a child. And I told my people I wanted to look at this a couple of weeks ago. And as you know, we have no taxes on a thing called tips. You know that? And I said, tell me, we did three things. We did that, and we did no tax for seniors on Social Security benefits. We want to have that. And I've been seeing a lot of IVF, and I kept hearing that I'm against it, and I'm actually very much for it. In fact, in Alabama, where the judge ruled against it, and I countered the judge and came out with a very strong statement for it. And the Alabama...
You were very quick in your response to that.
I was, but they were too. They were amazing. The legislature approved virtually my statement. I'm in full IVF, and it has really gone. It's terrific. And I said, so with the tips and with the Social Security, the no taxes on Social Security, I said, maybe for IVF, and I've been looking at it, and what we're going to do is for people that are using IVF, which is fertilization, the government is going to pay for it, or we're going to get or mandate your insurance company to pay for it, which is going to be great. We're going to do that.
Okay. So many thoughts. So the first one is her story is sad. And I know it very well. Emily and I have worked with so many couples. The desire for a child and the inability to conceive is hard. It's really, really hard. And we're not denying that at all. At all. So what do we do then? You know, I think that kind of is the question, right? And as we've mentioned before on this podcast, IVF, the means to the end really matters, right? So what is IVF? Quick review, right? It's the taking of eggs and sperm out of the male and the female, the mother and the father, putting them in a petri dish, creating a new life in the petri dish, so matching the sperm and the egg together to form the embryo, and then taking those embryos and, as Tulsi mentioned, right, giving the woman hormonal support to create a supple lining, trying to create a lining in her body, and then taking embryo, so one baby, multiple babies, and putting them back into the mom, hoping that they implant. Now, again, this is not very effective, right? It actually didn't work at all for her the multiple times they tried it. It's very expensive.
Right.
It's also not the only option or anyone's last resort. So when I was listening to her share, two things came to mind was we need to get more women. The medical system is just a hot mess, right? And I feel like most people would say that that's true. Now, the way that they want to have the solution for that is different. I think more government regulation. I don't want the government paying for my medical care. I don't want the government involved in my medical care. I don't want to be paying taxes and then have my tax money go to other people having IVF treatments either. So the policy thing, I just think is like, blur, please don't do that. That sounds awful. Let's not do that. Let's not support something that's not even that effective. And so who was advising you, Mr. Trump, when you were making this decision too? Like, who told you that IVF was going to be a good thing? And just like we're not in the business of taking life, we're also not in the business of making life. Life is a gift. Life is a blessing. We don't get to pump babies out like it's a factory. There's just so many things. Sorry, I just said so much in such a short period of time. And like, did we talk about the emotional part? I'm not denying that at all. I get it. I get it. When you want to have a baby and you see your period come, it's super sad and you get a negative test. Yeah. I just experienced that. I totally get it. Right, Emily? Like, we've all been there.
Yes.
We're women who have gone through this journey. We can relate. Absolutely. But it is not the only option. It's not the last resort. Because it doesn't address root causes. So you're not getting pregnant. The next statement out of the doctor's mouth should be, I wonder why. It shouldn't be, here's IVF. That's your only option. No, you're a scientist. Figure out why I'm not getting pregnant. Is it my husband's sperm? Is it my eggs? Is it my uterine lining? Are my hormones off? What's going on here? What is the root cause? But we don't have a root cause medical system in our country, that would be the better solution, Donald Trump, is what are we going to do to help create a medical, atmosphere an atmosphere in the medical world where we are root cause driven, where it is customers dealing with their, the providers, with their medical professionals to find out how they can correct this problem. So I don't think federally funded IVF is the way to go.
Oh, so many.
Anyway, any thoughts, Emily?
I agree. I agree with you. I think it's hard for me to get past her story. Like, she's talking and it's hard for me to even listen any farther because I feel so sorry for her. And I feel so, she was really let down by her medical care, just as most women are in my experience. And I believe that she could have had more answers. Do I know if she could have conceived a baby with her husband? No, I don't know. But I believe that she deserves healing for whatever the root cause is that's causing them not to conceive. There is something that needs to be healed that is inhibiting them from having a healthy pregnancy. And whatever that is, she deserves that healing. And she also deserves answers to what is going on. And I guarantee she didn't get that because she did proceed. People that get, I don't know. I don't know her situation specifically, but more than likely, she most likely did not get answers and was told that this is her only option. And the success rates are very poor. And the stories that you hear about are the ones that Mr. Trump is referring to, in the sense of, most likely you do know someone that has had a healthy pregnancy from using IVF, but you don't hear these stories. Just like he said, I didn't know your story, because there's so much emotion that goes with trying to conceive, and then how the couple goes about that, and the feelings about, our bodies just trying to conceive and not conceiving. There's so many emotions that come up. But then when you add in all these other layers, all these other moral layers, it makes things really hard, I think. And there's so many women and couples, or so many couples do struggle to achieve healthy pregnancies. And so, yeah, the topic of conversation should be, what are we going to do to heal and restore those couples so that they can have healthy pregnancies?
And then, because of my worldview, coming from a Christian Catholic worldview, I also am going to say, like, the hard part, which is I don't know God's will, and I don't have the right to a child. So just, I was at a party, and we were talking about kids. I was talking to another mom, and I said, we were talking about my twins just turned 3, right? So we were talking about their birthday, and that we wanted to have another baby. I said, Lord willing, we have a hard time having kids, and or it just doesn't come. I'm not one of the women that, like, my husband looks at me and I get pregnant. Like, that doesn't really happen to us. So anyway, so I said something like that, and she responded with, "Oh, me too. Both of my boys are IVF boys."
I know.
And I was like, I hate it when it comes up like that, Emily.
Right.
Because I'm just like, oh no, I don't want to have this conversation right now. Like, I
Right.
just want to talk about, like, let's just talk about mom stuff, Anyway, but when it came up, and what I heard, and what I've heard before, is that it's just this idea that I have a right to the child. Like, well, I'm pregnant, or well, I'm married, and now we want to have a baby. And so that's what's going to happen next. Like, that is what has to happen next. And without that reality of, like, but maybe that's not what's going to happen in the time frame that I want, in the way that I want. Maybe the answer is no. And it's hard when God says no. And maybe he says no, not right now, but sometimes he also just says no. And I just want to share this really quick, because Emily knows that I called her the other day. So we'd like to have another baby. And I was post-peak day 17, and I hadn't gotten my period. And I was like, I called her because I'm like, I'm so nervous to take a pregnancy test. What if I'm pregnant? I'm so excited. And, I had done just over the month of August, I had done this special, like, prayer novena. And I felt like my heart was just in a really peaceful place as we were approaching our time of potential conception. And so then I was in the post-peak phase, and now, that's the waiting period. And I felt so grateful to God because I didn't feel overly fixated on it, like that obsessive, which you can do sometimes, right? Like when you're trying to get pregnant, like, okay, counting the days, like, okay, when can I take the pregnancy test? I was just kind of aware of it. And then, in fact, I didn't even realize I was on day 17. I thought I was a lot earlier. So then I realized it. I was like, wow, I'm so much further along and getting pregnant. And anyway, I called Emily because I was sharing this, feeling these things, and I know she would understand. And then I got my period, though. That night it started a little bit, and then, sure enough, it was the next day. And I felt a great peace about it, because for me, when that happened, I was sad. Because I thought, oh, maybe we're pregnant again. I was so excited at just the thought that we were pregnant, and really thinking we were, because I was so far post-peak, and I usually don't go that far. Anyway, but I felt a lot of peace, and I felt a lot of joy and consolation in knowing that, okay, God must have said no, because to the best of my knowledge, we had the mucus. Like, we did all the things to do. We showed that we were very open to this, Lord, and we didn't get pregnant. And so I just felt this peace of, like, okay, for whatever reason, right now we're not pregnant. And I felt invigorated to enjoy the children I currently have, and to enjoy my marriage, and feel sad in the moment, and then kind of move on, because I can still become a saint, and my life and my love with my husband can still be so life-giving to the world and meaningful, even if it doesn't result in another baby from our marriage, Emily? And I feel like that's just a part of the infertility process that is not really, or the infertility journey, or just the plan God has for your marriage is not always talked about. Like, there's still people to love in this world, even if it's not in that way, So, but I do agree with you. I mean, Chelsea's story is sad. But
Right.
we have to remember so many things. The means to the end matters. Children die in IVF. Lots of children die in
Right.
IVF. Children are in freezers right now because of IVF. Like, there's just so much
Right.
evil that is masked as being
And,
good
you
through this process. And most of all, I think, Emily, first and foremost, is women are not
correct.
receiving
No,
the
you
care
tell
they
the
deserve.
story
Go ahead. I'm
about
sorry.
the interaction you had at the party. And my initial thought, knowing that she went through IVF for her 2 babies, is, wow, that must have been hard. And regardless of what I think about it, I can know with certainty that she went through that because she was struggling to conceive. And so anyone struggling to conceive, that's hard, right? And so, in instances like that, that's my initial thought. And maybe, not that I have a go-to statement, but maybe something that I would say, wow, that must have been really hard. And, this journey is really, it's tough. It is really tough. And, praise God for the lives that came from, these other means, but yes, we don't have a right to create life. Can I just say something? I don't know, something that's just been really, when you were talking about irony, this whole statement about reproductive freedom, the word freedom, once again, completely twisted. And I just feel like, to clarify that, to bring to the light what freedom actually is, freedom opposed to truth is not freedom. So this is Pope Benedict XVI. And, the truth is that life is created and we don't have the freedom to decide if that life lives or dies. And so this is not about freedom. This is about a lot of other things that we could insert words here to describe. But it's really showing how, God gives us truth and the devil just twists it just a little bit to where you're still kind of like, what did they say? What was that? Because you really do have to think it through and look and listen with, eyes and ears of truth to sift out, like, this is not right. This is not right, because the picture can easily be painted or tried to be painted just as we've listened to today. And it's really sad.
Right. I agree. Yeah. And I think this, if we want to do something, like, let's address the medical care, right? So if and doctors, and the other thing too is, like, I'm sure whatever doctors she met with, when they said IVF is your only
I agree.
option, they really thought that IVF was her only option, because they weren't trained in other approaches. Because, again, we've talked about this before, and then we have an episode that is that's coming out with Dr. Marguerite Duane, and she sheds a lot of light on what medical education looks like. And so when doctors say they don't know, or this is your
That's
only
true.
option, they're probably not lying to you. They're probably being very genuine. So yeah, why aren't we? Yeah, let's educate our doctors to look at root causes, to dive deeper, to figure out what's going on, to correct that, because fertility is healthy. For a man and woman to come together and for a baby to be conceived, that is a sign of health. That's a sign that two systems are working well together.
Mhm.
And we get to live birth, that's a sign of health. Anyway,
Yeah, I
think
do
that's all
want
I
to
wanted to
say,
share.
so
Do you have anything else,
we're
Emily?
trying to keep politics out of it, but I do want to speak about what the church teaches when it comes to this idea of, voting, for example. The church does say we do have a moral obligation to vote,
Perfect.
and then what we do with that vote matters. And when you have the option to vote for two candidates or multiple candidates that you feel like both have issues that you don't agree with, one maybe more so than the other as far as, evil, to be frank. They both have issues that can promote more evil in the world, but at different degrees. And so the church states that it is morally acceptable to vote for the lesser of two evils, because what you are doing is preserving the good that can be done by the lesser of the two evils. And so when you don't vote that way, when you perhaps use your vote towards a candidate that doesn't have the chance of winning, and then in turn perhaps gets a candidate in there that, by not using that vote accurately or responsibly, that's the word I should use, that can be a form of negligence. And so we are called to vote for the lesser of two evils. And so while that might not sit well with most pro-life Christians, it is what we are morally obligated to do. And so I'm going to send I actually listened to something about this, and I've read something about it, but I listened to something about it yesterday from Father Chad Ritberger. He just recently spoke about this. I know he's spoken about it many times, but he just describes it very black and white. And so I think that needs to be known as to what the church teaches. And they've held their stance on this for a long time, forever. So I think it was St. Thomas Aquinas that really started writing about this, and then the church has continued with those same thoughts up until now. He said even St. John Paul II spoke about it when he was a pope. So anyway, I just kind of want to add that so that we don't have to.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. We
Maybe
don't
we
have
can
to
link that in
agree
the show notes.
with everything that is on the platform, but we do have to vote for the lesser of two evils.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Emily. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye. That wraps up another episode of the NFP Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found our discussion enlightening and empowering. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd love to hear from you. Please connect with us by sending us an email with your questions and stories to thenfpshow@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with more insights, tips, and heartfelt conversations about natural family planning. Until then, love responsibly.